The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
It has been mass chaos. Tennessee has a coach that you probably have not heard of until the announcement was made over the weekend. Also, Kentucky, even that good of a job anymore? Who did they go after? We'll discuss. And unlimited transfers could be something that the NCAA or whoever governs college football has to deal with. It's going to be difficult. Can the SEC do anything to stop that? Do you expect much out of Nico Iamaleva in the spring game? And then DJ Jefferson enters the transfer portal. We'll discuss that. So a lot to get to. And John Adams is certainly nice enough to join us each and every Tuesday, which we love. And it's brought to you by our friends at Newbert Collision Center. John, how are you, sir? And how is your bracket?
My bracket is great. I'm fine.
I'm not so sure that the one you sit in on our celebrity challenge is great.
I had another bracket where I picked three of the Final Four teams. So my teams were playing for
Caleb,
the
what
national
about
title.
you? How are you? And how is your
What were
bracket?
yours doing, Dave? Huh?
I'm tied for fourth. How are you doing?
I had a pretty good bracket until Arizona lost. Just wrecked everything. I had Arizona as my team to win it all. And I thought the only reason I had
When
that is
did
because I thought
Arizona lose? I forgot.
Sweet 16. And so pretty much shot my bracket.
A lot of good basketball. Well, I enjoyed it.
Just might as well have done to my bracket what you guys say I want to do to punters in this game.
I will be honest with you. I started to root for Zach Edey a little bit because I think that as much as he's given a hard time about fouling people and it not being called and camping out in the middle of the post, I actually think that he gets fouled more than anybody and it's not called. And he has Barishnikov-like footwork where he gets a foot out of the paint. So I ended up being kind of an Edey fan. But let's talk about what Tennessee did. John Adams has covered the Lady Vols extensively. What is the number one thing you like about the Kim Caldwell hire as the next basketball coach of the Lady Vols? What do you like, John?
Well, her teams have an unorthodox style play, and it's enabled her to win wherever she's been. She hasn't been many places. She's been at lower levels, but she plays full court, up-tempo, presses all over the place, plays a lot of people. If you're trying to ascend in the SEC, you're not going to beat South Carolina. You're not going to beat LSU. You're not going to beat out Texas with a conventional approach. I don't believe. I don't think you can beat those programs with they have some of the best, three of the top five coaches in the country. So I think it's not a bad idea to try something different, something unorthodox. And I'm a fan of up-tempo basketball anyway. I like the full court game. I like teams that press.
Yeah. So, John, I want to stick on that for a minute. I agree. That's the positive. It's very exciting. Marshall was first, I think, in 3 points attempted this year too, and third in 3-pointers made. They were fourth in steals, so they were all over the place. But given what we saw with South Carolina on Sunday, is the women's game still at a point where, as much as it's gone more up tempo, where it's not quite like the men's game yet? Isn't it still at a point where defense and having a size advantage down low is the biggest advantage you can have in the game?
Well, I think we saw that with the men's game too. To have Zach Edey, for example, and UConn could match him with a 7-1 or 7-2 center. yeah, that's always an advantage if you have that. But not many teams have that. I mean, Tennessee had a 6'6" center this year, Tamari Key. She was tall. That's all. She wasn't, she wasn't active. She wasn't that skilled a basketball player. She just had size, and her size was a factor. So, yes, size is a factor, but I just think when you're recruiting the very elite players, I think those players are still going to go to South Carolina. They're going to LSU. They're going to UConn still. I just don't know if Tennessee can get those kind of players right now.
Well, the good news is maybe they can't get those type of players, but aren't there more of those type of players than we thought of back in the day? It seemed like if you got a Candace Parker, if you got a Maya Moore, you're going to win a championship or two. At least there's more of them now. There's more players that can make a huge lift in your program, correct?
Yeah, but there's still a limited number of 6'7" players. I mean, Camilla Cardoza. I just think, and Kayla pointed that out. I mean, that still gives you an edge. I mean, she's not just tall; she's a skilled basketball player, and she knows how to use her size, just as Zach Edey does in the men's game. So, I still don't see that many players like that. But yes, there are more of them. What I'm seeing a lot more of are perimeter players, are really skilled ball handlers, outside shooters. There are a number of those type players came into the game this year as freshmen and did really well, following in the footsteps of Caitlin Clark. Not saying they'll be that good, but same kind of similar players. We're seeing much more of that. The game has really evolved where they're more playmaker types, players that can make big plays, and I think that adds to the popularity.
You know, John, it's funny you say you don't have to be the next Caitlin Clark. Well, I would say Trae Young's not the next Steph Curry, but he's a guard you can build a program around. He's kind of like a poor man's version. So I think you're going to see that in women's basketball a lot. I think you're going to kind of see poor man versions of Caitlin Clark. And I think you see that some players in the NBA, and nobody's turning those players down. I mean, a B plus Steph Curry is still a pretty good basketball player. I don't think there's any question about that. John's appearance brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service right here at joenewbertcollision.com, joenewbertcollision.com. And when we talk about the greatest skill that she might have, Kim Caldwell is incredibly young. And I think she views this as a rebuilding job, even though, John, I'm not sure it's a rebuilding job. I feel like the three of us could have a top 10, 15 national class in recruiting, but she seems to have that fire and that spunk. And I think that's good for this job, even though I don't think it's a complete rebuild.
Well, I guess rebuild now is defined differently. You don't have anybody that comes in with a 5-year plan, Billy Napier, of rebuilding a program. It's not going to resonate well. A rebuild now is flipping your roster with transfers, kind of like Nate Oates did at Alabama with the men's team that made the Final Four. Tennessee's roster right now is probably worth the worst roster in Lady Vols history. And so,
wow, do you really, guys? Both of you, you both know more Lady Vols than I do. So, is it that
well?
bad?
I mean, I've been here since '87. It's the worst roster I've ever seen. If you don't add transfers, particularly if you're going to play a completely different style of play, I don't know a lot of players on this roster that could play full court up tempo very well. I saw this team against Ohio State in December, and seemingly had 1 million turnovers against that Buckeyes full court pressure. So I just think there's a lot of work to do. I think the main thing about this hire, when Danny White made it, he had to go to the boosters, and I'm talking NIL supporters when I say boosters, and say, okay, can you get behind this hire? You got to do that because they have to be able to invest. She needs to
basketball hire, right?
Yes. You got to be able to go out and get transfers and transform this roster because it's a losing roster right now.
Yeah, John, to your point on that, it's one of the things, and I talked about this yesterday, Danny White's philosophy is he doesn't always make the biggest splash hire in terms of the home run hit, but one of the big things going back to his days at Buffalo is he likes coaches who have early success. And Kim Caldwell did have early success in Marshall. She was there 1 year and took them to insane heights. I also like what Dave and I talked about yesterday, which is he got a better bargain for Kim Caldwell than he would have gotten for Lindsey Gottlieb or some of those other people. Do you think maybe going into his mind was, if I can get a bargain on Kim Caldwell, we can redirect some of the booster funds to NIL money to get the right transfers into the program right now?
Yeah, I can't break down how all that money goes, but I do think, and I do think, yeah, he got her cheaper than he would say a Lindsey Gottlieb. But the thing about a Lindsey Gottlieb, I mean, yeah, she's well known now in women's basketball circles, but she's not well known in terms of the general populace. There are only a few women's coaches that are. Gino is, Kim Mulkey is, Dawn Staley is, but other than those three, I mean, I just don't think, the casual sports fan knows who anybody is. So I do think, yeah, you could say it's a bargain hire financially. I was on a West Virginia statewide radio show yesterday, and the host talked to me a little bit about Kim Caldwell. And I said, do you think she'll be able to sell her program to boosters and money in return? Said, yeah, he said, without a doubt, they're going to love her. So, I mean, that's really what it takes right now.
It is. And John, there's a pervasive thought that was on campus that, hey, if this young lady goes and puts up 22 points and 8 rebounds, the NIL money should just start flowing. It shouldn't be a matter of whether or not she's popular or it's a good investment. That was the mindset. So hopefully that's the most encouraging thing I think I've heard about this young coach. She comes in and she says, you got to earn your NIL money. You got to be at these events. And that's interesting to me, because if Tennessee can get a couple of those people that are paying, goodness gracious, $2 million for an NIL to dole out a couple of $100,000 for a women's basketball player, you can change this program like in 2 years, literally.
Well, you could do it in a year. You get pay 8 of them $200,000 a piece. That's $1.6 million. Go get them.
How good can the Lady Vols? Let me ask you both this: how good can the Lady Vols be this year with this roster? Because fair or not, to some extent, some people are going to judge this coach by year one. 15 seconds, Newbert Collision Center.
In its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Caleb, I want to start with you. What should this Tennessee Lady Vols program expect out of year one?
It's hard to say because I don't know who they're going to get in the transfer portal, but I do think Danny White made this hire with the early splash in mind, because that has been Danny White's mantra. He's always been about making sure that the first year is significantly better than the last year of the other coach, no matter what. And so I think that just given White's track record and given Kim Caldwell's track record at the two places she's taken over, they shouldn't hold it against her if she doesn't do this, but I wouldn't be surprised with a 25-win Sweet 16 team next year.
It's important to note that John's eyes about popped out of the YouTube channel. So
I'm dead serious.
John, where are you on that?
Well, I mean, yeah, if she gets 5 or 6 top transfers, I
Yeah,
mean, right
LeBron
now
James' son.
there's no way this roster right now. I don't care who the coach. Gino could come in here. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament with this roster.
I mean, John, they were one game away from the Sweet 16 this past year with Kelly Harper, and I know it's different. They've lost some players, but like they're 2 years removed from. Remember, they went into the 2022-23 season a top 5 program when they added Rakia Jackson. There was a lot of expectations of them doing well. I don't see why she won't add a lot of transfers that could stand out. And I do believe, I mean, there are some people who were recruited for their ability to shoot and not necessarily haven't lived up to that ability. Is that fair to say yet, John? I mean, we're talking like, the Sarah Puckett's, the Kaya Wins, those type of players. I mean, the one thing I'll say in Harper's defense is she wanted an inside-out game. The problem is a lot of the outside players she recruited have just never turned into a shooter the way they were supposed to.
Well, Sarah Puckett's one of the best players on this current roster, and I don't see her playing this full court game. And I don't. There are a number of players on this roster that can't play that game. I mean, look, they're going to come in. I mean, Texas, LSU, and South Carolina. Oklahoma's got most of its team back. They're coming back for that COVID year. Ole Miss, Alabama. I mean, they're way down the list now. What they need to do if Kim Mulkey went out last year to LSU and got the top 2 transfers. Well, if Tennessee can get, I think Tennessee needs to get about the top 3 or 4 transfers. To win 25 games?
I mean, I'm just saying, look, part of her system is relying heavily on the 3 ball. And it's not like Tennessee doesn't have a few shooters on this team.
Wait, can't you just go ahead and get shooters?
What?
And you can do that too, yeah.
Yeah, in the transfer portal, you can get spot up shooters. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, but you got to get people that can play full court. These people, if they're 3-point shooters, they're going to get left in the dust.
No, I'm not arguing with you. Legacy Caleb is the one who's saying that this thing's just going to go swimmingly. I'm telling you that I don't know that Caleb they're going to win. I mean, to say they can win 25 games and make the Sweet 16 in year 1, that's pretty optimistic.
Guys, I work backwards from Danny White's history of hiring, and maybe that's stupid of me, but every hire he's ever made has had significant early success that was significantly greater than the coach before them, no matter how bad it was. Guys, John, you do remember when Josh Heupel was hired and we thought the roster is so bad, they aren't built for this offense that Josh Heupel's going to run, and they're going to collapse his first year. And he surprisingly went 7-6, and there's an argument that if he had started Hendon Hooker the whole year, he goes 8-5 at the very least, and he was a bad call away from 9-4 when you think about Purdue in the Music City Bowl. And so, I mean,
well, if they'd done a little bit more, they'd have been 10-3, huh?
Okay. Well, there was
come on.
There was
but they did go 7, Caleb,
which was significantly better than the 3-7 team a year before.
Okay.
And a 3-7 team that lost everybody. John, you and I both know an average run-of-the-mill coach goes 3-9 with that roster in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm all for what Josh Heupel did. I think he did a tremendous. His job, his first year winning 7 games with that roster was tremendous. I just don't see these situations the same way. Just because Danny White hired somebody, they don't suddenly, there's not some mystical quality. Oh, Danny White hired them. Oh, that's 25 wins right there. I mean, maybe if she gets transfers, that's what I don't rule that out. If she can get transfers, she can move, really move up in this conference. What she also needs to do, they need to schedule light to get your 25 wins. They're already in New York playing in Brooklyn in December against Louisville, UConn, or there's one other team in there that's pretty Iowa. So, maybe they lose that game. But if you schedule really, really light in non-conference, you can pile up a lot of wins, but you still can't get to 25.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this. I'm going to ask this in our poll question, our YouTube question. Do you care if Lady Vols win in year one under Kim Caldwell? Yes, a bit. Yes, a lot. They're ready. No, the roster is bad. 56% say yes, a bit. 38% say yes, a lot. They're ready. No, the roster is bad. Gets 6% of the vote. Probably deserves a little bit more. They're giving you more at BetUS. First 3 deposits, you get 125% bonus. That's pretty awesome. BetUS plus that 10% gambler's insurance that we could all use from time to time. BetUS. Don't forget 125% deposit bonus first 3 deposits.
America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Okay, we discussed what John Adams likes about this team and the Kim Caldwell hire. I'm curious what he doesn't like about the hire, because to me, this was a cost-conscious move, and I want to tell you why. And John can give us insight into some baseball as well. I remind you, the show is represented by Banks and Jones. Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. John, I'm of the opinion that an athletic director needs to come out and say, hey, listen, we took the big bat to the plate and swung it as hard as we could. We called Kim Mulkey. We said, listen, we could do $4 million. We called Don Staley and we said, listen, I know you're drinking champagne because you just won a national title, but hey, how about we boost it up by another 500,000? And then if you come to me and say, we got this bright up and young and coming coach, I can jive with somebody getting paid $750,000 to be the Lady Vols head coach. But that in and of itself seems bizarrely low to me. So do you think they took a swing at the other people? Do you have a problem with them going with the discount bargain bonus move?
Well, I think Tennessee had money to spend here. I don't think it was trying to go cheap. I think it might have made a call to somebody like Don Staley and said, is there any interest? What would we need to do? And she says, leave me alone. Don't ever call me again. You can't get the big 3. They're not going anywhere. Gino, Mulkey, Staley, they're just not. And so even if you drop down a level and go for Brenda Freese at Maryland and or maybe Vic Schaefer at Texas, they're not going anywhere either, I don't believe. Maybe Jeff Walls at Louisville, he was interested before. I don't know if there was any interest. Maybe there was no interest in hiring a male coach. But once you get past that, I'm thinking, who's the splash hire? I don't know. And I mean, suppose Tennessee had hired Corey Close at UCLA. She's done a really nice job there and won a national title. That's a hard place to win, and she's won a lot of games. I think she's a good coach. But her name never came up, and I think if Tennessee announced her as a coach, I don't think that would, that wouldn't spike much interest. I think he's made a risky hire, but a hire, and as well as anybody, he has a good track record of hiring people that haven't really accomplished the highest level, and then they turned out to be good coaches. So I think that I think he believes in this person. I don't think he just hired her to be cheap. I think he believes she can win here. So,
Caleb, let me ask you this. How often, if you're the athletic director, can you take these hires that are maybe a little bit chancy? I mean, it's easier to do when we're not talking about the football coach, right? But if you say, I like this baseball coach, I think he's going to be really good, but I'm not 100%. I've got some equity because Josh Heupel's won a bunch of games. I'm going to take a shot at this track and field coach or tennis coach or whatever. I mean, I wonder how many times as an athletic director do you take what could be a high risk, high reward decision?
I mean, I think Danny White's whole career is doing that, even with football. I mean, he did it with Josh Heupel.
Yeah.
The football community was very upset about the Josh Heupel hire because they wanted Hugh Freeze. I don't think anybody wishes they had Hugh Freeze over Josh Heupel in Knoxville now. And so this is Danny White's whole career. Now, could at one point he think too highly of himself and go a little extra? Yeah, the best equivalent I could give, you guys will both know this. Who was the Dallas Cowboys GM in the 70s and the 60s? It was so good at scouting high school talent and built Super Bowl teams.
Tex Schramm?
Was that it?
Gil Brandt was their
Brandt.
personnel guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and he thought he was so good that he actually went too creative by the 80s and went out of his way to find unknown high school talent and wrecked the franchise. I guess Danny White could one day down the road do that, where he thinks like, oh, I can find anybody anywhere, and then he'll go hire Jerry Faust to coach the football team out of high school. But I think at this moment, I think that he has a good enough track record to say, I usually don't do this, but for me to put enough faith in him. Now, I wanted to get to real quick, and John, I wanted your thoughts on this, and Dave, you too, but just thinking about what we don't like about the hire, is it a concern to either of you? Because maybe it is to me, particularly from a recruiting perspective, that her entire career is just in West Virginia outside of about 3 years in Sacramento State.
John, I don't have a problem with that. And to go back to the one thing I do like about the hire, I thought it was very decisive and moved. I'm not crazy about the Kalen DeBoer hire, but I was impressed by the way it was carried out and taken care of. I mean, that thing was done in 36 hours. This one is done pretty quick too. And I think it was because they wanted to ask, like a Gottlieb, do you have any opportunity? And she had a Final Four to tend to, and then they moved forward. So the fact that she's just at West Virginia, I don't have a problem with that. Jerry West was pretty good out of West Virginia.
Yeah, I don't know if she's been in a small world, and I look at her roster. What I look at it's not just that she's been in West Virginia, although it's the idea she's going to need to recruit a different kind of player. Her tallest player, she's got I think a 6'1" player, and she had a couple of 6-footers, a lot of 5'8", 5'9" players. I mean, maybe you can win with that in the Sun Belt or certainly in Division II, but she's going to need a different type player. And I think it's really important in recruiting in any sport. If you've been at one level and you've recruited to win at that level and be successful, that you understand, when I go to a different level, a higher level, now I'm going to have to upgrade and get a different kind of athlete. What worked for me before won't work here.
I know it's a completely different offense, but let me ask you guys both this, because you guys are really in tune to Lady Vols, so I'm leaning on you. John, I want to start with you. Is it as big of a deal for Tennessee to make a splash get? Like used to be, when you knew that Tennessee got Candace Parker, they were going to win at least one national title, right? When you knew they got the Meeks, they were going to win at least 2 national titles. When UConn got Maya Moore or Brianna Stewart, you're like, they're going to win at least 1 or 2 national titles with those 2 players individually. Are there still players out there like that, or is as the talent level at the top leveled off a little bit? John, I'm going to start with you, and then Caleb, but I just want to get your thoughts as well.
Well, look at South Carolina, the preeminent program right now.
Uh-huh.
Had a 6'7" player who can play the game, shoot, rebound, pass, do all that stuff. Great player. Go back to last year, we had Camila Cardoso, the 6'7" player, and it also had Aaliyah Boston, a 6'5" player of the year, and it still couldn't win the championship. The difference was this year it has a contingent of 3-point shooters. It needed all of that. There's more talent in the game now, so it's harder for you can bring in one great player and still not win at the highest level now. You go back. Holtzclaw had better players around her. Candace Park had some good players around her, but Candace Parker was a 6'5". I really think she was about 6'6". But anyway, she could play anywhere on the floor. Back then in 2008, yeah, you could be hard to beat that team unless she just had a bunch of stiffs around her. But now I think it takes a stronger team overall. Just one player won't do it. But in the past at Tennessee and at UConn, when they won, they combined for 19 national championships. When those teams won championships, they usually had the best player in the country. Might be Candace Parker, Shamika Holtzclaw, Brianna Stewart, Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi. They always had the best player. That's not enough now.
Caleb, I want to ask you, how much of a benefit would it be purely in recruiting and providing momentum? First, tell you about our good friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go in there, say Off the Hook Sports sent you. They knock $500 off. They deliver everything to you. Support our sponsors. Go in and say hi to our friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas in Athens with their great showroom. Here, the best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish bottles, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com. So, Caleb, let me turn to you. I guess that's what I'm asking. Is there a player out there that, regardless of what they do in the court in college, that could provide a huge boost in recruiting, or do those players exist anymore?
Not as much as they were. You guys are right. Back in the day, you landed the best player. You went and won titles, plural. But Caitlin Clark was the best player at Iowa. She came away without a title because South Carolina could just overwhelm her with so much talent on the interior. As for this level, John, it's funny you bring up about I'm guessing you're saying, so your biggest concern with Caldwell is the recruiting factor, right? Recruiting that type of player for this level.
Yeah, that's one of the factors. She may be able to do that. I'm just saying she needs to understand she needs to get a different caliber player than what she had where she was. I would assume she understands that.
Yeah, I agree. And it is going to be trickier at this level because now you're needing to get, for her system, you're needing to get like 6'2" and 6'3" players who can run the floor and shoot the three. That's a lot harder to find in the women's game. And that's going to be difficult. I'll say that what I would say is I go back and forth with this, though, because I always wonder, is recruiting easier? And maybe from a football perspective, you guys could tell me, you particularly, Dave, is recruiting easier or harder at the lower levels? Because yes, it's at the lower levels, you're limited in the talent pool. At the higher levels, you're expected to get the best players. So the expectations are higher. But I feel like it's not as hard to evaluate the talent at the higher levels as it is at the lower levels. Don't you really have to, if you're coaching in any sport, don't you really have to do a lot of legwork to identify the talent that'll fit your program? if you're at a school like Marshall? And doesn't it become easier if you're at a school like Tennessee?
Yeah, John, I think you would rather be at a place like Tennessee that you can just hop on a flight and go see a kid and be able to probably close a lot of deals that way. It sounds a lot different. You go, I'd like to be up there, but this program you're going to depend on to feed you and take care of you for the next 5 years. We don't have the ability to get up there. Our travel budget's been cut. So you don't want to pass along that message.
No, I just think another thing I like about this hiring, going back to the style of play Caldwell has, it's a very clearly defined style of play. I mean, I always like in any sport when I kind of know what the team is trying to do offensively. You know how you watch some teams like, Tennessee under Jeremy Pruitt, that comes to mind. What's he trying to do? What's his, what does a Jeremy Pruitt offense look like? Setting you up for a punchline.
I've got so many I can't choose between.
Yeah, I know. I just can't shake the idea of him with that COVID mask dangling beneath his face.
I just think of Jeremy Pruitt and Butch Jones meeting in the middle of the field, just saying, "I got a better haircut than you." No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Butch Jones at least had an offensive identity. Whether or not you liked him, he at least knew what he wanted to run on offense.
That's true.
Yeah, but I think she does. I think she knows exactly what it takes to run her system and make it work. So I think that's really important and really significant. I noticed somebody, one of our listeners, tweeted that Carol Lawson turned down the job. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't think they had any interest whatsoever in Carol Lawson. She burned bridges when she was here and left the board of trustees. They weren't going after Carol Lawson, and her resume at Duke is pretty thin anyway. So I mean, these rumors get started, but they did not want Carol Lawson.
No, I don't even believe she was in consideration.
No, she wasn't.
No. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I don't think so either. And then the Summit, family probably would have hurt her anyway, because I think Tennessee's trying to steer clear from that altogether. It's funny. Just I will never forget. There's the common basketball hire when you talk about not a system, John. The last place Buzz Peterson was hired at, UNC Wilmington, because I follow former Tennessee coaches. I listen to what they say, and Buzz Peterson at that point said, "I'm not one of those arrogant coaches that believes you got to have a system and players fit into it. I believe you adapt to what they do." That's code for I don't know what I'm going to run. And so
that's the exact opposite of when I said, "You're trying to get him better," and he goes, "Well, I'd really like the damn scholarship back." Just run him off the court and out of the program was the goal. It wasn't to make him better. It's like, man, I could use that Scully.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I've got there's very few coaches, David Cutcliffe, one of them, but there's very few coaches I would sit there and say when they say they want to adapt to their personnel, I think that's code for they don't know what they're going to run and they have no idea what they're doing usually.
Well, yeah, Caleb, I agree. I think some coaches, you need to adapt to a certain degree, because a lot of times you take a new job. I don't think Jalen Milroe at Alabama necessarily fits exactly what Kalen DeBoer wants his quarterback to be able to do, but he's going to have to adapt his system because he's clearly the best quarterback. You've got to be flexible within your system, but you got to have a clearly defined system of what you're trying to do.
That's
exactly.
By the way,
what? Oh, Jalen.
That whole DeBoer and Jalen Milroe thing, it's not going to work out. DeBoer wants a pocket passer. Jalen Milroe is not that.
Yeah, but I think he can still make that work. I think Alabama can still be pretty good this year.
Okay. I mean, Urban Meyer was
Kalen DeBoer is a good coach, huh? Excuse me.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, that's okay. And I was going to say, and Urban Meyer was able to tweak his offense for Chris Leak, who was not a fit for his offense at all, and he tweaked his offense. I totally agree. Yeah, they adapt to the personnel. The other one, I'm going to watch the press conference this afternoon. I'm sure you guys will too. If I hear her say my style of play is discipline, if I hear a coach say my focus is instilling discipline, my head's going to explode, because that's the other thing that drives me crazy about coaches when they take over the new job. As if a coach is going to say, I don't think we should have discipline in our program.
Yeah. And we're going to give it all. Going to give it all for sure. And you're going to see a team that's going to give 110% night in and night out.
I want to make sure these players turn out to be good citizens. That's my
goal. They're not only going to be great players, they're going to be people. They're going to be people that you're proud of.
That's what Jeremy Pruitt said when he was introduced. He was like, "What type of player am I looking for? I want guys who want a degree." Like, that's not what you want, Jeremy Pruitt.
No, I don't care.
Did Jeremy Pruitt get a degree?
GED. All right. Coming up, is Kentucky even a good basketball program anymore? I don't know. And is it better than the Lady Vols women's basketball program? That's at least debatable, isn't it? I remind you that John Adams, what'd you say, Caleb?
I just had never thought about that.
Yeah, see, I'm always thinking. I remind you that John Adams' appearance is brought to you by our good friends at Newbert Collision Center.
In its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Welcome to Ray Varner Ford in Clinton, where every turn meets new possibilities and every mile celebrates cutting-edge innovation. Elevate your journey with our pre-owned selection of quality vehicles. 2021 Ford Mustang 5.0 GT, $33,540. 2021 GMC Sierra 1500 Denali 4x4, $46,980. 2022 Ford Expedition King Ranch 4x4, $67,550. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Are you scared? Because that's obviously the wrong rejoin. Here we go.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
A lot of things going on. Again, a record number of concurrent listeners. So hit that like and subscribe button. By the way, if you're on our the Twitter, you need to be sure and go ahead and make sure you like the YouTube page and that you're subscribed. Please hit subscribe now and hit the like button. We appreciate that. Brings in more people. And we've got some big announcements coming down the pike. And also, we greatly appreciate it when you turn your notifications on because like Cooper Mays, for instance, is coming down today. We look forward to that. And portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving the Chattanooga community since 1957 down there on Cherokee. It's Quality Service Tire Pro, qualitytirepro.com on Cherokee Boulevard. They've got it all. Say, hey, Bo, and tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. John Adams. The better program for a head coach is Kentucky's men's basketball program or the women's Lady Vols program. What's the better job?
Kentucky men's program.
Okay. Why?
Does that need elaboration or?
think it does.
How much was Kelly Harper making and making? I'm looking at it as a coach.
1.4 and approximately 8. Okay. 1.4 and approximately 8.
So it's probably
okay. So let's twist it up a little bit. What's
8 times better.
Okay. What's the tougher job? 8 times better. What's the tougher job?
Depends on how you define tough. If you talk about winning, I think the Lady Vols job is tougher. If you talk about what you have to deal with on a daily basis, the Kentucky job is tougher because you got 1 million people up there in Kentucky watching every move and critiquing every player on your roster, right down to the 13th best player.
Yuck. Yeah. Caleb, want your take? Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com, RickTerryJewelry.com. Congratulations to our celebrity bracket challenge. David Leverton, former punter, won that. So he wins some Fire Opals from Rick Terry Jewelry Design. His wife will look lovely. Caleb, you were going to say?
Well, okay, pay not being a thing because I'm with John. Like, you take the Kentucky men's basketball job because you take the millions and millions of dollars. Because even if you get fired, you're fired sitting on $5 million. And so, yeah, on that regard, Kentucky men's basketball. But I determine difficulty based on what's possible relative to expectations. And let me just get this out of the way. I think both jobs are overrated. I'm just going to say that both jobs are overrated. I think Kentucky, I think there's about, and I'll get to this, there's about half a dozen SEC schools I'd rather coach at than Kentucky, assuming the pay is the same.
Okay, may we quickly define overrated? John said it's a top 10 job. I think it's a top 10 to 15 job. Where are you at overrated?
I don't think it's a top 25 job. Ooh. And I'll get to that in a minute, but because my breakdown of a job is expectations relative to what's popular. So the reason I think Tennessee Lady Vols, I've told people this before, I think the Tennessee women's basketball job is the worst job in America in women's basketball because you are expected to win like South Carolina or UConn, but you are expected to do it in a way that makes it a lot harder. They expect you to recruit certain types of players and win a certain type of way. Now, I think Danny White hopefully changed that a little bit with this hire because there was the belief for a long time that you got to win in the summit way of defense and rebounding, no matter how much the game changes. It's very much like, and I say this all the time, Notre Dame in football. John, I know you think I'm crazy, but if you hear where I'm going here, Notre Dame football is the worst job in America because they expect you to win like Alabama at Notre Dame, but they expect you to uphold academic standards that no other school has to uphold. That's not possible. It can't be done. It's like asking someone to drive with their feet. Okay? It's like it is an impossible task. You are asked to do literally the impossible.
Wait, what do you press the pedals with, Caleb? How you drive?
I know exactly. Like it is literally impossible to do. Lady Vols have somewhat unfair expectations in the same way in that they expect you to win on a powerhouse level but put limitations. Kentucky, to their credit, doesn't put any limitations on anybody. I just don't think Kentucky... Guys, John Calipari won a national title at Kentucky, and Rick Pitino won a national title at Kentucky, and Tubby Smith won a national title at Kentucky. None of them won more than one.
Here's why Kentucky fans are insane. Because Kentucky fans end every sentence, John, with, yep, still on us. We should have beat them. It could literally be the UNLV Running Rebels' best team, and it could be Kentucky's worst team. A bunch of Caucasians from the early 1940s.
Because Adolf refused to recruit anybody else.
Yeah, without getting into the racism issue, which is a big one. But they would say at the end of it, well, pretty good athletes, but in the end of the day, should have beat them. They're our boys. No, you shouldn't just win because you put the jersey on, right?
I think if Rick Pitino would have stayed at Kentucky, he would have won at least 3 national championships.
Amen. And I'm telling you,
was made.
That's the only phone call that needs to be made. Thank you for going there. It's Rick Pitino.
He was made for that job.
But here's my take, and Dave and I talked about this morning, and so we talked. So we talked about. It's funny. John Calipari's at Arkansas. Nolan Richardson won a national title at Arkansas. Arkansas fans. Dave brought this up a couple of weeks ago. John, Arkansas fans believe that the program won the national title. No, Nolan Richardson won that national title because of his 40 minutes of hell system. And if he didn't win it at Arkansas, he would have won it at another Power 5 job. It had nothing to do with the actual infrastructure of the program. I think Kentucky's success in at least the last 25 years has much more to do with the coaches themselves than the program. John Calipari, that recruiting class that he got when he first went to Kentucky, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, that whole crew, they were all committed to him at Memphis. So they didn't commit to Kentucky. They committed to John Calipari. What Rick Pitino did at Kentucky, that's what Rick Pitino did. That has nothing to do with the program, I think. I think that, and by the way, you saw that because the program faltered out under Tubby Smith and became insanely mediocre his last 3 years there. And so
John,
I think
why wouldn't, not to interrupt, but why wouldn't you hire Rick Pitino right now? This seems like the easiest hire known to man.
I think they would perhaps his age, that would
What
be
is he, like 77?
No, he's not that old.
Oh.
He's early 70s at the most. I mean,
you check that, Caleb?
Like I mean, he's a great coach. Here's what Kentucky fans want. You talk about expectations. They want to know when their team goes out there and their coach sits down on that bench that he's the best coach in the arena. John Calipari wasn't always the best coach in the arena. Now, he can get you the best players, but when Rick Pitino's out there, they say, yeah, well, Rick will out-coach him. What Kentucky fans, all they want is the best of both worlds. John Calipari's players and Rick Pitino there at courtside pushing all the right buttons. But you have, if you're going to hire a coach,
so they want the best recruiter and the best coach. Is there any sanity in this?
No, but I do believe when you look at some of the top basketball schools, you look at UConn. If I were Dan Hurley, I would consider the Kentucky job. I think you're going to have more. You're going to have more resources at Kentucky long term. I think when you look at the way this is going with NIL money, when you look at the way it's going with a possible super conference, UConn could get priced out of the market. Kentucky's going to get all this football money, TV football money. Where do you think it's going to spend that money? You think it's going to invest in Mark Stoops' program so they can go to the Music City Bowl every year? They can go there anyway. I just think long term, if I were a really successful coach, I would look at conference affiliation.
I think that's a great point I hadn't thought of. I want to ask you, would you consider two guys within the conference if you're Kentucky? And I'm talking about, actually three guys, Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, and Rick Barnes. Those three have had success. They've gotten to the Final Four. Portions of the program brought to you by Don Self at State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net, donself.net. I made the argument in the column that I think Barnes, Pearl, Oates would have success there for different reasons. Pearl has proven, and Barnes have proven they can head up a program. Now, Pearl's NCAA issues are way behind him. I think that's fine. Nate Oates is an up-and-comer. Don't like the way the gun stuff was handled last year, but I'm in the minority there. I think that all three would have success. All three, though, would look at that job and say, I like where I am better than going there. Is that crazy, John?
I think Bruce Pearl of those three, it's not even close. He would be the very best hire. Bruce Pearl thrives on attention. The mass hysteria that surrounds Kentucky basketball, Bruce would thrive on that. He tries to create that where he goes. He did it at Tennessee. He did it at Auburn. It's already there at Kentucky. He's the ultimate extrovert. He would mingle with those crazy fans. He would, and I think he could recruit. He could recruit well to Kentucky. He could get players at Kentucky maybe that he couldn't get at Auburn or even at Tennessee. So that, to me, if Kentucky's looking for a coach, Bruce Pearl should be right near the top of the list. And maybe at this stage in his career, at his age, maybe say, well, I don't really need that. But he might look at it and say, he's very competitive. He might look at it and say, I'll win a national championship there. I couldn't quite get to the Final Four at Tennessee, and I couldn't quite win a national title at Auburn, though I came very close, if not for the injury. He did make the Final Four. But that, to me, I think Bruce Pearl would be a tremendous fit.
I agree. And Caleb, I think it'll be about Bruce Pearl saying, I've accomplished this. I was the guy that you didn't think was good enough because I recorded a conversation with a prospect and got blackballed and had to work my way up. Had a pretty bad misstep with the NCAA with the kid at the barbecue. But I think it would mean a lot for him to get a job like Kentucky. Kind of validate his career, so to speak.
Here is the thing you guys are both missing. And I'm just going to put it out there. And I don't think basketball works like football. And where I'm getting with that is this.
You have to dribble.
I'm sorry.
You do have to dribble.
The ball is different. The ball looks different. It's shaped
what I mean is for college football, the program is as important as the coach. I think college basketball, we are seeing over the last 26, 27 years, the coach is significantly more important than the program. So I don't think there's much difference program to program depending on where a great coach goes. Villanova's got 2 national titles in the past 10 years. UConn has a dynasty. They got 6 national titles since 1999, and that's not a top 25 program in terms of resources.
But who disagreed with you on that?
Well, here's what I'm saying. Where I'm getting is this. I don't think going to Kentucky makes you any more likely to win than you would just win at Auburn as it is.
Now, John, you did say that, and I'm with Caleb on this. I don't think that going to Kentucky makes you more apt to win a national championship than being at Auburn or Alabama or Gonzaga or a lot of different places.
Maybe it's less likely now, but I still long-term, I think you have a better chance at Kentucky. I still think what I talked about with Hurley about conference affiliation, I think that matters. I just think they're and the NCAA thing with with Pearl. I mean, Kentucky gave players racehorses. I don't think they would care that Bruce Pearl gave a recruit a barbecue sandwich. I mean, to me, another guy I would look at is Billy Donovan.
I would too.
I said that too.
He's with Chicago Bulls, and I don't follow the NBA that closely now, but the Bulls aren't flourishing. I know that much. Billy Donovan, he won 2 national titles at Florida. I just think he's a really good coach. He was an assistant coach at Kentucky. He comes from that Pitino coaching tree. He played for Pitino, so I think he would be a really good fit. I think he could handle that. I mean, if I'm in the NBA, a coach, don't you get tired of all that travel?
Well, also, I'm just going to point this out. With the exception of Rick Carlisle with the Mavs in 2011, who's the last NBA team that won a championship where you're like, oh, they won it because of the coach? That coach just really drew up some nice stuff. Players win the championships in the NBA. The coach really just rolls the ball out.
I know, but they kind of made Phil Jackson out to be this mystical guru.
Gosh. And Tex Winters is over there riding up the triangle
because he inherited Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Well, it didn't hurt.
Let me draw this. You passed the ball to Michael Jordan.
It didn't hurt that he inherited the basketball Einstein that didn't care if he got any credit. Ray Varner Ford isn't about the credit. He's about local you can trust, innovation you can't afford. RayVarnerFord.com. RayVarnerFord.com. It's time to jump in the hot tub. We're running late, John. Thanks for hanging with us. It is 4 downs now. Unlimited transfers. What?
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
Let's get in the hot tub right now as Cooper.
Mace here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll hit like and subscribe. Be sure and do that.
Coop here. First down.
First down in the hot tub brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. And that is this. What's the latest, John, on some talk of unlimited transfers within a college career? I don't understand how this can possibly be something that can be worked out, but we discussed this yesterday. That's a real possibility.
Yeah, the NCAA counts next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and one of the items that was reported on 3 that they're going to discuss is just unlimited transfers. You can transfer as many times as you want. Now, you can't transfer in the middle of a season. You can't transfer in the middle of a game. I'm sure some players would like to transfer in the middle of a game. We can't do that. But yeah, and I think it'll come to pass because I think this is where court cases are going. That they're not going to say you can't transfer but one time. Courts will not back that up. The NCAA always loses those battles in court now. So I think that's going to happen, and we can look for that next week. So it seems almost like there's unlimited transfers anyway. You say, well, you can only transfer once. I mean, the guy played, I think it was at UConn or Alabama, maybe Alabama. One of the players, I think, has been at 4 different schools.
I want to throw this out there to both of you. Caleb, I'm going to start with you.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
As far as unlimited transfers, and you keep up with politics a lot, it may not be best for the sport, may not be best for coaches or players, but legally, what could you stop about this? Because if I'm a plumber or an electrician or a welder, I can go from job to job to job every 6 months. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure what John said that you can't transfer during the season. I'm not sure that's even legal, but we'll see. You have to hold on to some vestige of what the sport used to be, but I don't see any way to get around this legally for the NCAA.
No. And anybody mad about this can't be mad at the NCAA. They can't be mad at anybody but a man named John Sherman and a president named Benjamin Harrison, who signed the Sherman Antitrust Act into law in 1890.
I was actually going to go further back with Thomas Jefferson.
No, it's not Jefferson's fault. This wasn't around.
Pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness.
Yes, but that's not in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can, and there's no law that says pursuit of happiness is allowed. No, it's the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 basically says, if a business has a monopoly, they can't limit the employees or their workers or their labor. They can't limit their ability to maximize revenue for themselves. And if you have any limitations on transfers, you're kind of limiting that. So until you let the NCAA players collectively bargain, or unless, this is what Tommy Tuberville basically wants to do with his NIL law, you allow Congress to pass a basically antitrust exemption for the NCAA, which I don't think, then you go to the 14th Amendment, because that would just be totally unequal treatment of certain workers. There's really no way around this. And quite honestly, guys, I don't really have a problem with it. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we've already basically had unlimited transfers anyway. And I think I think in a certain way, it's actually created a renaissance of more parity in the sport than there was before. So I kind of like this.
Well, a lot of people don't know, but Danny White was the backup center for Idaho last year. Transfers, the proliferation of them have just gone through the roof. What down do you got here?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
You're smiling, John. You know you are. All right, John, if you had the ability to be the czar of transfers, how would you do it? I think I've heard you say this before. You would allow 2 transfers. One has to be a grad transfer. Is that right?
No, but see, that's what we have right now. But the thing is, when you look at the court, I mean, Caleb spelled it out. You won't win this in court. So it's really a moot point. What I would like is because the courts aren't going to uphold.
So a guy could say on a Monday, I don't feel real good about this. My name's Jawan Jennings. I'm going to transfer to Vanderbilt and help them flip the Vols on a Monday of game week.
He didn't say he was going to transfer to Vanderbilt. He cussed out the coaches for not letting him play versus Vanderbilt.
I know, but I'm saying if he was that mad, he could have left that day. Just any player.
No, I just think, you just kind of got to roll with it. I don't think you're going to. I think there is the possibility, though. I mean, what if somebody, think about this. You enroll at a school in basketball, play first half of the season, a new semester starts the following January, and you say, man, this team, I'm carrying this team. This team's not even going to make the NCAA tournament. You get a better NIL deal at Kentucky or Kansas or wherever and say, see you guys. It's been great, and I appreciate everything you did for me, but I'm moving on for the second half of the season. I mean, can you legally prevent his doing that? I don't think you can.
Mid-season? Okay.
Mid-season,
I like this. It's 4 downs. It's brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Coop.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. Should you be able to transfer mid-season? Dynasty Pools and Spas. Here, the best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish models, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com. All right, guys. Should you be able to transfer during the middle of the season? Basketball seems to make a lot more sense, like John said, because there's kind of a natural pause around Christmas. But football, you would have an off week, theoretically. Is there any way the law can prevent you to do otherwise?
Well, here's where schools have some control. It's the academic eligibility. I mean, we've almost completely forgotten about academics, and student athletes is become an outdated term. But how could you transfer in the middle of a football season when you're in the middle of a semester and enroll in another school and be academically eligible? You couldn't just start taking courses in the middle of the semester. That wouldn't work. That's why I use basketball as an example, because you have the semester break.
May I offer one thing on football? And you're 99.9% correct. There are still a few that are on the quarterly system. I know because my son goes to a school like that. And you would have to find 2 schools that were both on the quarterly system. But theoretically, I think you could transfer in the middle of what you and I view as a fall semester because they're on quarters.
Where was your son playing ball, Dave?
Well, he wasn't playing ball, but he was at UMass, and they're just on a quarter system. I'm just saying that if you're on a quarter system, could they circumvent the semester issue which you brought up?
I guess they could.
Oh, and also with the expanded playoff, the second semester, I mean, the playoff will be going into the second semester anyway for many colleges. So theoretically, they could transfer to a playoff team. Like a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback whose team didn't make the playoff, and then there's a team in the playoff that is just weak on quarterback, and then they give him a call and say, "Hey, want to come play quarterback for us during this playoff run?"
I think it would work better with a running back.
That's not the most insane thing I've heard, because you have that now with the trade deadlines in both the NBA and you have that as well in Major League Baseball, and now you've seen the NFL move it back. I mean, Caleb was having a little bit of fun there, but if it's creating more pub in the middle of the season, I wouldn't rule it out. Would you guys?
Anything's possible in today's world, I think.
And the trade deadline is at least different because there is a deadline and the team has to trade you to another team and the other team has to give something up. We're talking about a player could literally finish a semester, win the Heisman, be an All-American, something like that, and then just transfer to a school that is weak at his position that's in the playoff and go help them win a title.
It's bizarre. All right, John, thanks for the extra time. Sorry we ran late, buddy. Have a fantastic rest of the day. We appreciate you each and every Tuesday, and it's brought to you by our good friend at Newbert Collision Center. So thank you very much, John. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel. And up next, it's Nico's spring game. Is that a big factor for you? Do you need to see Nico do something special? What I would do to the spring game, why I think a lot of fans are reluctant to support it, because there's a limitation at seats and they're paying for the seats. And I've heard the term money grab more times than I can count. So hang tight with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. We continue with Do You Care What Nico Does in the Spring Game, transfer portal news, and more. Off the Hook Sports.
Ford Mustang 5.0 GT, 33,540. 2021 GMC Sierra 1500 Denali 4x4, 46,980. 2022 Ford Expedition King Ranch 4x4, 67,550. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
You see right there, TriStarHatsCo.com, TriStarHatsCo.com. Certainly check them out, as all you have to do is mention the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED for free shipping. And we remind you they have fantastic apparel, not just the hats. So certainly check them out. We appreciate that. And Jacob Warren, what should people do if they want to be a part of the program on a regular basis?
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Thank you, sir.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Before we dive into this spring game, do you really care what happens at the spring game? It's dialed down to a great extent. Do you care if Nico Iamaleva has a big game? And also our other topic du jour that I want to dive into and get your thoughts on, and I want to get definitely want to get Caleb Calhoun's thoughts on, is DJ Jefferson enters the transfer portal. So what does that mean? First, though, I'll remind you that you can be a part of the crew, as I gave David Leverton a special shout out because he won our celebrity bracket challenge. So I had a whole video with him on there. It's on our Patreon page. All you have to do is sign up. A lot of free stuff on there. But if you want to win prizes like weekly and monthly grand prizes, then all you have to do is sign up $9.98. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you on board. We'd love to interact with you more. But don't think that you have to spend money to interact with us. We want to be able to do that. So we want to get back with you. And I gave Caleb a major shout out over the weekend because he just was predicting news like it was this afternoon's weather. Bad analogy, but you were on a heater. You were definitely on a heater. There's no question about it. Will it slow down for Caleb at all? Well, probably not, because I think I know where Caleb's going to come in on this thing. And I say that Nico Iamaleva does not have to have any big spring game whatsoever. You'll call me crazy, but I'm saying, what the age?
What the? What was he thinking? Release the hounds. The Dave Hooker Show. Keep cool. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
By the way, our Patreon page, Hooker's Corner, where you can become a John, wouldn't be what it was today without Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. Does it matter what Nico Iamaleva does at the spring game at all to you, Caleb Calhoun?
No. Josh Heupel is. I'm telling you guys this right now. Josh Heupel is bitter and resentful that he has to have a spring game. And he tried, I guarantee you, he and Danny White, they tried to work on the idea of construction at Neyland Stadium during this time because Josh Heupel doesn't like showing anything. And so he's not going to show anything. So he's going to trot Nico out there, play him a couple of drives. He might have Nico make some nice throws here or there. Then he's going to have Jake Merklinger and Gaston Moore and Navy Schuler. And we're going to get some headlines in a week, which is basically the headlines we're going to get in a week are Gaston Moore looks like he could be the quarterback in case Nico goes down. We'll have about 5 articles written on that because Josh Heupel is going to make him look amazing in the spring game.
And a lot of people are saying you wouldn't even play him. Now, when you say don't play him, that means full pads scrimmage situations. I'm assuming that you would like to see him go through some quarterback drills, right? I think you would like to see him throw it around a little bit. I mean, not to play him all together, but guys, I mean, a non-contact injury could happen if he stepped off a sidewalk somewhere. So let's not be overly crazy about how careful you are of this young man. He's a very good athlete. He's not going to stumble upon something and hurt himself. I mean, he might, but you can't protect him at all times there.
No, you can't. What you could do is, I don't know if you were covering this, Dave, but I was. In 2017, Butch Jones did a skills challenge for the spring game for different positions.
Oh, I remember that. And actually, I do not hate that idea. So I'll go ahead and throw that out there. You just have to be very careful of what they do.
Yes. Yeah, hitting moving target. The quarterbacks are having to hit moving targets and things like that. Just do that. Look, these spring games are... I feel like, let's talk about the overall goal of spring practice. I think the most important thing with spring practice is to get newcomers a jump on developing with the offense and just helping yourself become a little bit more familiar with what's going on with the system. Is that fair to say? Like, It's about just getting more familiar with the system more than anything else.
Listen, if your spring practice is done and nobody got hurt with the exception of Cam Selden, And am I missing anyone? I don't think I am.
I don't
But
think you
Cam
are.
Selden, that's called a win. That's an A right there. Right there. I don't care what else you've done. And then if you've gotten to the point where you feel good about one or two other positions, that's an A+. Listen, spring camp is not what spring camp used to be. Spring camp used to be the one opportunity to throw on shells, used to be the one opportunity to throw on multiple levels of pads. Now, I'm not saying they go full pads during the summer, but they do. So it's not what it used to be, Caleb, but here's your opportunity to go really practice football. They're really practicing football in the summer as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the most important thing is how committed are the players to practicing football when the coaches can't actually run practices in the summer, right? That's really what tells you about how good your team is. I mean, you've talked about the 98 team a lot in the sense of they were doing regular workouts and just did not need coaches or conditioning coaches or anybody to tell them to get ready, right? They were focused in the summer no matter what.
Yeah, they were zoned in, and I expect this crew will be like that. Now, your linemen are going to focus on building mass during the summer. They're going to focus on building mass during the winter workouts. So they're not going to be as involved in skelly drills and things like that, but they're still going to be going through footwork drills. So they're going to be getting an awful lot done. So don't think this is just open up spring camp, get a little bit better, and then close it and see what happens, because it's going to be much more than that. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechatwith2ts.com, hemphousechatwith2ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. The promo code HOOKED for 10% off. And I remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our good friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. Here, you know, the best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish models, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com. I'm curious what most of you would like to see. We haven't done a good job on the poll question. Would you rather go out there and watch Nico Iamaleva throw for 350 yards and be a star in the spring game, or just shake his hand and say good luck?
In the spring, shake his hand and say good luck. I mean, these particularly, I've covered enough of them now too myself. You don't gather anything from these type of games. Now I will say this, I figure, I have covered some spring games where I saw quarterbacks' weaknesses early on, because I mean, again, you can just have them throwing it against air and you can tell if they can throw or not. I mean, there was the Quentin Dormady, Jared Garantano race in 2017, and I thought Dormady was better from the start. Butch Jones then benched Dormady halfway through the year to try to save his own job and try to scapegoat him for things going wrong in 2017. So that was an issue. I think in general, though, yeah, I never was the biggest fan of these, particularly when you're right, they're holding everybody out if they're not ready. I think it's just, to me, spring practice is a lot of just making sure you're not super rusty when fall camp starts. Like, okay, you got your feet wet a little bit, and then you have summer workouts and things like that, and then things get really rigid in the fall. But I mean, hell, it's funny because there's more people on the roster now for spring camp, Dave, than there used to be. It used to be like none of the enrollees were there for spring camp, right? None of the signees were there for spring camp. Maybe one or two.
Rare. If you got like two, it was a big deal. So the last poll question was, do you care if Lady Vols win in year one under Kim Caldwell? Yes, a bit. We got 58%. And no, the roster's bad. Got 22%. Yes, a lot. They're ready. Got 18%. So now the new poll question that I have on our YouTube page, and I would love for you to go ahead and vote right there. Because the spring game, and I had somebody reach out to me that they're an advertiser, not just with us, but with other companies as well. And they're charging right now about $2,500 to go over there and have a setup to be in front of all those fans. But there's only going to be 10,000 people at the game. And then when we asked that question first thing out of the chute, we had a lot of people that said it's just a money grab. It's just a money grab. My thoughts on the orange and white game, and I think it's very doable now, whereas it may not have been in previous years. Play Clemson. Play somebody for the orange and white game that you don't play in the fall. I think that would be really exciting. For the record, would you rather see Nico light up the orange and white game, or shake his hand and say good luck? 62% say see him light up the orange and white game. Only 38% say shake his hand and good luck.
Well, the majority is wrong in this situation. They're just factually wrong. So I'm calling out the majority. I say shake his hand and say good luck, and I would barely even play him. I get your point.
Well, you got to remember though, a lot of these people don't have the same inside knowledge that we have. You and I have maybe a shred, 1% doubt that Nico won't make it. I've always got some doubt for anybody, but you and I are probably on a different plane of believing in him as a player right now.
No, that's very true. People have talked about this for a while, because it's funny you say Clemson, because people have argued for, I guess, kind of an exhibition college football game. I've always rejected that. I feel like college football was fine as it is. Half of the teams play tune-up games to open the year anyway in their first weekend. So
that's true. And the one thing you would not want is somebody to get hurt in one of these games, or to get chippy at all. So when you get in the world of when you put those two words together, exhibition football, you've got a potential major problem, because somebody's going to play harder than the other crew because they've got something to prove. It happens in NFL preseason all the time. It would happen in my idea too. I just think it would be neat. I think it would get everybody's attention.
Oh, I'm sure it would.
Not something I'm married to.
Well, I mean, doesn't the NFL have in the fall, in August, they have different opposing teams practicing on the same field and practicing against each other, and fights break out all the time when that happens?
They do. And there's chippiness. And I will go ahead and tell you now that I believe that Josh Heupel would absolutely hate it.
Oh, he would absolutely despise it. Josh Heupel would absolutely despise this to no end. It would drive him crazy to have this level, to have something like that during the spring. Josh Heupel's probably spending half the spring anyway trying to devise new schemes for his offense. I think Josh Heupel's offense, I think he works a lot in the offense trying to adapt it as much as possible. Honestly,
I do too. I don't think that he is a big fan of all the stuff that goes on with football and being a high-level coach. I think that and I believe this firmly, I think he likes Tennessee because I think he sees it being big enough but manageable as far as the media. He takes pride in going to a press conference and saying absolutely nothing.
He does. And also Tennessee, the great thing about Tennessee for him is that it's so big, a lot of the day-to-day stuff that other coaches would be expected to run, he can get other people to run that stuff where he is. I mean, he doesn't have to deal with it.
Let's take a look at our celebrity bracket challenge. Look at my guy, David Leverton, winning that thing as he did so. UConn, the champion, followed by Jimmy Himes, followed by Trevor Perkins, followed by Dave Hooker. But if you look at my max, that second column from the left, I had no chance to win. Stacey Oliver and I ended up tied. She does a great job of covering some fantastic baseball for us. Scott out at Dynasty Pools and Spas was right there with us too. And then you get to Tommy, who had Purdue, followed by John Pennington of the Sports Source. Can't beat that show. It is Sundays on WATE at 11 a.m., followed by Drew. John Caleb Calhoun down at the 10th spot. He had Arizona winning it all. Just a terrible showing by John Caleb Calhoun. Zach, great showing by him at Sports Treasures, just below him. Fred, great showing by him. He did fantastic. Bruce, great showing by him. Notice all these guys did great.
All these people below me had great showing somehow.
Radomir, great showing by him. T. Scott Jones, represented by Banks and Jones. Spencer Riley, a little bit lower. Trammell, you may know him. He's my son there. He did okay for the first one, I guess. And then Brandon in at the 72nd spot. We're getting to sad areas here. Michael, 70. G Money, 68. Randy Green, 66. John Adams, all the way down at 63. He was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Josh Ward, do we believe anything he ever says again? Third from the last. That was horrible. So I assume that this was not your only bracket. Caleb, did you do another one as well? How did you do on the rest of yours as we look to hang out with our big winner here just momentarily? We will visit with David Leverton as soon as he gets hooked up. So go ahead. You were going to say?
That bracket, no, none of mine did well because I faded UConn in every single bracket. I didn't think they'd repeat. And so even my other alternates, I never had UConn winning it.
At what point did you feel like UConn and Purdue were the best teams?
Never. That's the funny part about this. Never. I wasn't convinced.
I felt that way about Purdue after the way they beat Tennessee. I didn't think the officials. I thought you brought up a great point. I'm saying this again. The guys like Barishnikov, he has great footwork and he gets a foot outside of the key and he gets a foot outside of the paint. So he's not called for 3 seconds nearly as often as it looks like he should have. I saw that. I went back and watched the game. I said that's going to be really impossible for most teams other than UConn to possibly stop.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's and UConn stopped him well because UConn has a 7-2 guy who basically what happened is they didn't get wrecked on the boards. The story of Tennessee against Purdue is the same story of Iowa against South Carolina in the women's game. It's a little old school, Dave, but winning on the boards can help sometimes. And UConn was not the best team inside, but they didn't get absolutely obliterated on the boards the way Tennessee did. And as we know, Tennessee got obliterated on the boards because Zach Edey scared Jonas Adu out of the game 4 minutes in.
No. The funny part about UConn, it was like they had a 7-footer that did things for them, but he was just one of their many good players, whereas Zach Edey was their one of two. I would take that little bitty guard, one of two really good players that looked like they fit right in at that level, but he was the centerpiece. He was it. If it didn't work with him, it wasn't going to work elsewhere. DJ Jefferson decides to transfer. Your thoughts on him entering the transfer portal?
Well, he's different from Freddie DeLeon in that he's a little bit more of a wing and a backcourt scorer, but they're both backcourt scorers. So we can get back to him in a little while. But I think that DJ Jefferson, I'll talk about this you guys soon, but may not be as big of a loss as Tennessee thinks, just puts a little bit of pressure on Rick Barnes.
Okay, let's pull up David Leverton. He is the champion of our 2024 Celebrity Challenge. Peter Warwick this bracket and absolutely destroyed it. As congratulations, David Leverton. You are not just a great punter and a great man, but a great bracket filler outer person.
It's all skill, of course. You can take my 11-year-old daughter and have her on there, and she whooped my rear on our family brackets. You kind of have it. It means absolutely nothing with athletic prowess or knowledge of the game. What I would love is to everyone take all these expert brackets from all the talking heads and have them publicly berated by how wrong they are, because all of ours go horrible. And I had, I think, 3 or 4 brackets this year, and I got 7th place in one because I tried to choose the bracket that my heart was drawing me to, which was the Vols as the national title, and the one with you, David, I let my head lead a little more. And so I took the Vols, I think, to the Elite Eight, which was a pretty reasonable, good year.
Well, you win some fire opals from our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design for the missus.
I've always wanted some fire opals.
I know you have. Your wife will look lovely in those. Also a hooker shirt and a Celebrate 98 book that you're in. So
I already bought the book from you, so I'm going to give it to a friend because I love the book.
I like it. Anything else from you, Caleb, as we let Mr. Leverton out of here?
David, you are a I just want to have a little fun with David because I thought I was going to win it until my Arizona pick got knocked out in the Sweet 16. So out of revenge, I'm going to troll you for a minute. No, I'm kidding. But
go ahead.
My
Troll
most
away.
memorable punt that I watched David Leverton hit was one that was ruled a touchback but shouldn't have been. And it was your first punt your senior year against Alabama in 2000. The game Casey Clausen started. That thing bounced right over the goal line in the air, and you were celebrating. You thought you had pinned him on the 1-inch line, and then the refs said that it crossed the plane just barely. Still an amazing punt that you came that close to doing it, though.
The only thing I like better than tackling is a good, pin him deep. I just love doing that. As a fun thing to do. But, you play Alabama and you get some things. But I'm just proud to say we never lost to Alabama. We never lost to Georgia. Those were some fun years.
Well, David, I hope we can do some more things this fall. I'll probably hit you up if that's okay.
Yeah.
And best to you and the family. Congratulations. I will reach out to you, get your address, and we'll hook you up with the best prize pack that a trade can buy.
Thank you. Rick Terry Jewelry Design, blue opal. Just it's going to look good on my wife. Or maybe I'll send you a picture of us on a date here in Franklin, Tennessee soon.
Gotcha. I like it. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
David Leverton joining us, always nice. And he won the bracket challenge. And he was talking trash to me and Spencer and Fred White. He was like, "Here it comes. It's going to be me winning this when UConn wins." And he was absolutely right. Let's get back to some Tennessee basketball. Tennessee with a transfer, and I'm not sure how this should be judged as DJ Jefferson enters the transfer portal. I don't have a really good feel for him as a player to this point. What do you make of DJ Jefferson?
Well, he follows Freddie DeLeon, another kind of wing backcourt scorer entering the portal. I think Rick Barnes is clearing up space to get a few guys in the transfer portal. That's what I think is happening. And because they are very high on Cameron Carr, Zakai's probably coming back. Jemai Mashak is still there. I think they got a couple of other options. I think Rick Barnes is clearing space to get the next Dalton Connect in the portal. And I think that's what he's doing. Or
why not two to give yourself options?
He might be doing that.
You may not. Let's say, for instance, you get a slasher who can't shoot outside and you get a guy who's a great spot up 3-point shooter. Neither one of them can do both like Dalton Connect could, but you're a better basketball team because you got two guys with a great skill set.
Yes. That's a very good point. And they might be doing that. They might be going your route and going for a big guy just because Donovan Clingan just held Zach Edey off yesterday, and that was enough for UConn to win. And if Tennessee had a guy like that, they beat Purdue. Toby Waka. Someone with a lot more control than Uros Plavsic. But Toby Awaka, if Toby Awaka had 4 more inches, it'd be him. JP Estrella, if he had a little more weight on him, it'd be him. Jonas Adu is just the softest person in the world. I'm sorry. Jonas Adu, I'm going to give him hell all summer. He's not going to like me because that was the mentally weakest game I've ever seen anybody play. He took himself out of the game. I went back and rewatched it, Dave. He took himself out of the game. He should be embarrassed by what he let Zach Edey do to him.
They will take you out of your house if that's what you want. Boundless Moving, from a 2-hour minimum to turnkey operations, they've got you covered. Boundless Moving in Charlotte and East Tennessee. Just Google Boundless Moving. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. Also want to thank our friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit when maybe you just need a new part. That might save you thousands of dollars. cityheatandair.com, cityheatandair.com. Certainly check them out. So does Tennessee, I believe that the way college basketball is going to shake out is the way I think football has been a step ahead. And partly that was because you had a basketball season that was completely canceled at the end of it because of the COVID timing. So I think football is ahead. And I think football has realized that you're going to pay the guys that can transfer in and help you. So if that's what Rick Barnes is doing, clearing space, it's a little bit risky, but it's not a lot risky because with what Tennessee has done and his reputation, it's not like he's starting off at 28 saying, "Hey, guys, I've got this plan. We're going to run off the guys that you've played really hard with and then bring in better players. Hopefully everybody will mesh." you have a lot more say in the matter when you've been a coach for 30 years and you have, 700 wins?
Yeah, something like that. UConn is the formula. Because UConn had one player, Cam Spencer, who they picked out through the transfer portal this past year, who was kind of their Dalton Connect because he was a veteran and just wanted to develop. And then they had 3 returning starters, and then they added a 5-star recruit. Now, I don't think we're going to see Tennessee get any more 5-star recruits like that for one and dones in the future. They don't fit Rick Barnesville. I will tell you this, Dave. I've backed off the whole not going for big men in the transfer portal because Aaron Bradshaw, Kentucky's 7-1 center, just entered the portal with Calipari leaving.
Yeah. Well, let me make sure you and I are on the same page. You don't like one and dones out of high school, but you're not saying you dislike one and dones out of another college, a transfer guy, right?
Yeah, I don't mind one and done transfer guys. I think there's a maturity level for one and done transfer guys that's not there for freshmen.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're on the same page. Apex Apparel Group Design. Check out this shirt. It's awesome. This is my TriStar Hats Co. shirt. They made that for me. Apex Apparel. 15% off your first order if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Just call Tyler 865-919-3001. Call Tyler 865-919-3001, and they will take care of you. Spirit wear, no matter if you're talking about promo products or what the case might be. Do you think this hurts Tennessee's the way they're viewed, that they've lost a couple of players pretty close together? How big of a concern is that?
No, this is par for the course. Everybody freaks out when the players hit the portal and then they forget that they freak out without realizing that they can add players. This was not just basketball. This was football. When all those players were entering the portal back in December, Josh Heupel, everybody was like, is something wrong with Tennessee football? Is this an issue? No. Josh Heupel nudged every defensive back under the sun into the portal. He wasn't sitting there losing guys. He was nudging them to the portal.
I used to think that negative recruiting was a thing that you could say, oh, man, they've lost a couple of those guys. I don't know what's going on. And I still think negative recruiting is a thing, but I don't think losing guys is one anymore because I think guys realize they are contractors. And school A, school B, school D, school C, whatever the case may be, didn't mean that for that to rhyme, but who can provide me the best opportunity to showcase my talents? That's a school I'm going with. And if you're going to judge me for it, other player at other school, well, then you're going to be in the minority because most of the kids are going to back most of the kids, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I think if Tennessee loses 2 guys to the transfer portal, but they get Aaron Bradshaw out of Kentucky and plug him in at center next year, and then they find the next Dalton Connect in the portal this year, no one's going to be complaining. And I think that's actually Rick Barnes' plan. I think Rick Barnes is planning to – you talked about the renaissance in college basketball, Dave, and it really showed you don't have to dominate on the inside, but you have to hold your own because –
I'll tell you what, I went out of my way to watch that game last night. And I don't know that without having some sort of I like Duke, North Carolina basketball just as a fan. I'm not a fan, but just as an admirer of it tends to always be a great game. Without that, I've always found what Kansas has done interesting. Without something intriguing, which they had in 2 big men, I don't know that I would have gone out of my way to make sure I watched every bit of the game. You probably would if you're younger, don't have kids quite yet.
Well, I was fighting an upset stomach all day yesterday, so I was in bed watching the game, funny enough, but felt better last night. I was just tired by then. But yeah, it was – I agree. I still probably would have gone out of my way to watch the game. I like inside-out basketball too. Now, I don't like Kevin McHale just sticking in the paint all game basketball, but sorry to take a shot at your old Celtics, Dave.
I like it.
You know.
And I shorted Rick Barnes some wins, 800 wins. My bad. There is the post in the message board. We'd love for you to sign up for Hooker's Corner. You can be a John, just $8.98. $8. Wait, $9.98 a month, and you can be a winner of weekly prizes and grand prizes. So we thank Sports Treasures for being a part of that. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the